Hi, I'm Carla with Race to Walk, and this is just a few thoughts on a Sunday. And I hope you've been having a great weekend. Um, so, the title of the stream is The Real Horror. And I was thinking, what am I going to talk about this week? And, some people, they look at like the horror genre. A second, I'm trying to get this so I'm not like so a little more centered. But some people look at like horror stories and they think that like super scary. Usually, horror has to do with like demonic manifestations, and that's pretty much the defining feature of it. But honestly, I think the real horror story is when there's demonic interference and you don't recognize what it actually is. And um, it's kind of funny that, Christians, just by the profession of our faith, we should be supernaturalists. But really, I think sometimes we are more, we act more like we're naturalists than a lot of people who aren't believers, who don't confess Jesus as Lord. There is, the testimony of the Bible and what our um, belief should be, or that it is if we're claiming to be Christians, is that what we see is not all that there is, and that there is an entire spiritual world that is interacting with us, and that is really part of the story, is that this unseen world is at war with the great I am, right? That's the whole, really what the whole testimony of the Old Testament is that these war between these this unseen world, this principality between them and God, and human beings is playing out in this realm, right? And God's saying that's the I was talking about the nations were apportioned to the sons of God, the Beni Elohim, as these principalities over these different areas, and God just chooses one person, one man, Abraham, and the story is how through this one man that there is going to be God is going to have victory over all the nations. All the nations are going to come to him. So it's this cosmic battle that's playing out here in human being, and we as human beings are made part of God's great plan. And Paul talks about this in Ephesians, that God is showing his supremacy to these unseen powers through us. And that is the story, but we don't always recognize that. Or sometimes when we do, we get a little loopy about it. We go a little bit, become unbalanced, and we focus only on that. But last week, I think I shared about that the girl that came in for healing, and that I could when I came to the healing room, I was at the healing room, and I could tell, I saw something, that there was something there, but I didn't say anything about it, and there was some restriction against her healing. There was some barrier, and the lady that I was with at the time said, you should have said something. We could have taken care of it, because that is also part of the victory of the cross, that through Christ that we've been given all authority, and that he's won the victory through his blood and sacrifice at the cross, right? He's made atonement for us, that is the authority that we have. And when we don't realize that what is really at play, then we can't solve the problem. And this week we were in our Afghan Bible study. We've been talking a lot about Easter, and I've been trying to tie it into. I've been trying to explain how Passover and the Exodus, it was a foreshadowing of Jesus's first coming. And I personally have always thought that that's pretty obvious when you read the Bible, especially the New Testament. There's references to the Passover celebration all throughout the Gospels. Jesus is identified as the first fruits. He's identified as our Passover offering. I mean, it's a very clear connection, but it's just weird to me how many Christians aren't aware of that. It's kind of weird. So I've been trying to explain that, and I can't even remember now. I guess I should have. I have been recording the Bible study meetings that we've been doing on Mondays now. We changed a little bit when Mark was doing it. He was doing a Monday and Friday meeting, and the Monday meeting was at a house church. And so I just recently have been kind of restructuring my time a little bit and just saying, okay, I'm only going to do Monday. Everybody's going to be invited. It's going to be recorded, and so people can participate based on that. So usually when they participate, the cameras are off, and I understand that. It's totally fine. They're in a dangerous situation. They have to be very careful. So I just this is what I'm doing, and they can participate in how they feel comfortable based on that. Sometimes they turn on the camera, not always, but anyway. So we were talking about, I can't remember how I brought this up, but I don't remember. We were talking about in Daniel. He's praying. Daniel's praying to God, and I think this starts in Daniel chapter 7. He's been taken into captivity, and has been in captivity in Babylon for years. And he said he was reading the words of the prophet Jeremiah, and he saw that Jeremiah's prophecy was that they would be in exile for 70 years. And Daniel realized that the time of exile was coming to the close. And so he's praying, he has a prayer, and he's confessing the sins of his people and recognizing that, they have done wrong, that God was right in allowing this judgment to fall on them. And that he said, God, do not delay, for the honor of your own name, don't delay, and perform the word that you've spoken. So the prophecy is there, right? This word is spoken, but it's activated by this repentance and this plea for justice and mercy. And then as soon as he prays, angel appears to him, and he's given this word, which is actually ends up being the timeline to the Messiah. And I think that this is really cool. I just thought of this as I was talking. A lot of times the prophets are given words, but they don't see the whole picture, right? They don't really know how it fits. Like Isaiah, I don't think he knew. When he was giving the prophecy of the virgin should bear a child, he was probably just thinking it was that the person that he was speaking to. There was, it's probably a woman that was there, and he was looking at the immediate prophecy. Probably had no idea how the larger fulfillment of that prophecy would be fulfilled, right? But Daniel is really given a special grace in that he's saying that when the angel is telling him this will happen, right? I don't think Daniel ended up returning to his own land, but the angel is telling him this isn't the whole thing yet. It's not the whole thing yet. That the Jews did return, but this expectation of the coming of the Messiah, that wasn't near yet. And so the angel, in giving him this timeline of the Messiah, he's also letting Daniel know that this big hope, the big thing that he's hoping for, it's not just a return, but the coming of the Messiah, that's not yet. That's not going to come yet. And that's what Daniel is getting when he's getting this timeline. And I don't think we covered this on Sunday, but that was why when Jesus came, there was a lot of expectation about the Messiah. That there were many people that were claiming to be the Messiah. They had this expectation because of Daniel's prophecies, because everything was so specific, that they had seen that his prophecies were prophesying the rise and fall of nations. Like, they had the Babylonians, and then the Assyrians, and the or the Medes and the Persians, not the Assyrians, but the Babylonians, the Medes, Persians, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans. He had a very clear prophecy of that, right? And so they're going along, and they saw what happened. Daniel's prophecies had proven to be true, and so they knew, they had this expectation. And it's like I've talked about this a little bit before, that the wise men from the east, the Magi, were Parthians, and Afghanistan was part of the Parthian Empire. And so they had respect for Daniel too, and they were kind of like, the shepherds on the field, out in the field, tending their flock. They were invited to come and witness the birth of Jesus, right? The wise men weren't. They were like party crashers, but they had this respect for Daniel, and they knew God through Daniel. They had seen the witnesses of his life, right? And so there was this respect for Daniel and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so they brought gifts to Jesus, and it was because of the gifts that they brought that Mary and Joseph had the financial ability to escape from Herod when he was going to murder all the young children. And so when they escaped to Egypt, that's how they had the funds to do that. So they were refugees for a little while until after Herod the Great died. And then they moved to a different location because one of Herod's kingdom was split up into 4 different sections, and so they moved to Nazareth, where it wouldn't be as hostile to them for whatever reason. But it just when you haven't been in a situation like that, it's really hard to understand that, right? It's hard to understand what it would be like to have no resources and no way out, and to have this synchronicity of events come about to bring you the provisions that you need to escape, to escape certain death. And that's what happened. And this is really the Afghan story too. They've it's just so unbelievably hostile for them, unbelievably hostile. And just this morning, I saw an article. There's a few things. Like, I'm not even sure how to explain how bizarre this whole situation is. It's more than just, like, I know our immigration system is a mess. It's more than that. It just, when I started looking at it, that's just what it felt like. And as I've been reading more about it, I know that's true. That it actually is true. Just this morning, I saw a couple things. There was an article that was shared that there were 14 Afghan UN employees, and basically the UN is ghosting them, won't help them. Totally seen that. I think I've mentioned this before. We have people who have worked for a lot of different NGOs that they're getting no help. Like, they're literally coming to the Bible study teachers asking for help for food and like medication, because they literally have no help. And I would just say that, like, even if an NGO is not going to say, okay, we can't help you with immigration, you would think that they would at least help them, have some food to eat, and they're not. So it's really unbelievable. Like, if think about, like, just imagine what it would be like if basically the whole world went to hell here and things blew up and you had to leave for some reason. Number one, what would you do? Like, who would you, if the only safe place was Australia, like, how would you get there? This has been, I've talked to my Jewish friend Leslie, the one that has helped she said that, they always told them, make sure you have your passports, always make sure you keep your passports current. And that, oh man, let me tell you, that is wise advice, because you think, oh, it couldn't happen here. Like, who knows? Literally, who knows what could happen? It's always good. The amount of trouble we were having to get passports, that's wise advice. But you would think that just the average person, they're in this situation. I mean, the people that we have, it's so surreal. I mean, there's these kids that that have just kind of no special connections, and people who had connections with the Afghan government and NGOs. They're in the same position. They don't have the amount of connections some of our people have, the things that they've done. Like, you would think that they would have been on a flight out, in the first few months, or at least have somebody willing to help them because of the connections that they have. And it's just, they don't. I mean, it's really bizarre. It's like, I saw another article this morning about this American Immigration, I don't know if it's the American Immigration Forum or what, but some organization did they did Freedom of Information requests, got emails from the U.S. Customs and Immigration Service, USCIS, about the time of when this was all going down in 2021. And so right now, like, as far as immigration for Afghans, and there's all these words about, oh, we're going to stand by our allies, da, 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 da. All this stuff is complete baloney. It's not true. I'll have to put links into the description and in the article a little later, because I didn't have time to do screenshots of this, but they, like, even the SIV applications. So there's basically two paths. There's a special immigration visa, which is specifically for people who, like, translators and people who worked with the military or on government projects. And so that's one path. And with that, they have to, let me go back. Let's see. They have to have documentation of that, documentation of the work that they performed, and then they go through this whole long process. And I mentioned that two of our families have SIV applications in, or are trying to get SIV applications in, but they have IDS International won't give them, they're in my Hall of Shame, they won't give them their they have to have a recommendation letter from the company they actually did work for. It has to be the senior most official to be even able to start the process, and they haven't gotten it. But they also have humanitarian parole applications in. So anyway, so the U.S. SIV applications go through the State Department, and it has to go through this COM approval, chief of mission. They have to have anyway. And then they have going into the U.S. refugee program, there's a humanitarian parole option, and that there's two different options. But with both of them, like, nobody can just come and apply for immigration, particularly for the Afghan situation. And you would think that with all the words about, oh yeah, we're going to stand by our allies, that there would be more of an expediting of the process. Well, there's not. And this study, this research that they just did, and this Freedom of Information request, they have emails saying this. In the very beginning, they were saying, okay, for the Afghan applications, basically put everything else on hold and focus solely on the Afghan applications and expedite them. So do everything you can to get the Afghan applications done. And then just in September of 2021, the word came down is you put all of them on hold. Put them on hold. So they weren't processing them at all. And that's what it's felt like. It's literally felt like that they put that. It's just like this wall up. And so that's the case. And you'd think even like with SIV applications, those are super slow too. I mean, I heard somebody say that there's about 100 being processed a month. I mean, that's even speeding up, because there was one time period where they had, I think it was the last 3 months of, in 3 months they did 114 approved 114 SIV applications. It's like they're looking for any reason they can to deny them, and it's just bizarre. And Pakistan has shut down offering, approving visas for Afghans coming into Pakistan. We have one person that did get a 1-year visa. I don't even know how, like after February 8th, I don't even know how that happened. It was like a literal act of God that he got that. But there's this, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in one of the streams, but there's it's the special investigative something for Afghanistan. It's called SIGAR, SIGAR. They've been doing reports on situation in Afghanistan. And there are, in the Doha Agreement, when Trump agreed to, or made an agreement with the Taliban, that's the thing. The Taliban were not in charge, if we don't remember this. There was an Afghan government. And so Trump made an agreement with the Taliban, with the terrorists, that they would withdraw, take out all the troops. And as Marcus said, like, we've had troops in Afghanistan since before the Soviets were there. He said, I was on a Marine base in the 1950s in Kabul, so we've had troops in Afghanistan for a very long time. But Trump made an agreement to pull out all American troops from Afghanistan and released 5,000 terrorists that were in jail. And we have a judge that we've been trying to get a visa for, that was one of the people that convicted those terrorists that are now running the country. And so he's in hiding, for his life. And so anyway, but then even on top of that, there's these secret documents, they call them secret annexes, that even the investigative committee, the people in charge of overseeing what's going on, they don't have access to this document. So there's a secret agreement between the U.S. and the Taliban. So who knows what's in that? And there was an article in the Washington Post that said that when the U.S. was withdrawing, that the Taliban was going around and telling people that they had a secret agreement with the U.S. that they would give them these certain territories. So we just straight up, all these words about, oh, well, it was just the Afghan government. They couldn't hold the country. It's their fault. No, it's our fault. Like, when we hand it over to the Taliban, who are you going to blame? It's just ridiculous. But it also makes me wonder if part of those agreements were agreeing not to let people leave, because that's what it feels like. And in Biden's remarks, he said, oh, we will continue to stand by our allies, and we will let free travel for anybody from Afghanistan, our allies, or anybody who wants to leave. I'll put a link in that we're going to. This is when they pulled out. This is what they promised. That is a complete and total lie. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Pakistan, just in the past few months, has gotten like $326 billion to help rebuild from international aid to help rebuild from the flooding last year. So don't tell me that there couldn't be some input about how the Afghans are being treated in Pakistan. And the fact that they've just straight up shut down any visas for Afghans makes me think, not only is there not pressure about helping Afghans, for Pakistan, but maybe it's because of international effort that they are being shut out from escaping the country. Because that's literally, I think I shared this last week, that's literally what Denmark says. Well, their excuse for not helping Afghans is that, oh, well, the Taliban aren't issuing passports, and Pakistan isn't giving visas to Afghans. So we can't help you. We can't help you. I know it's really tough. You can't get here. We have people in Pakistan that could be helped. So anyway, my point is going back to this. It's like you have to know what the real problem is, and there's all this deflection in like, oh, it's not this. Like there was this guy who was supposed to be some bigwig in evacuation circles. He was putting the blame on foreign countries that they couldn't process the visas. It's a bunch of baloney. It's not the fault of foreign countries that out of the only like a minuscule amount of applications have been approved. I don't think I have it up here, but one of the articles that I read out of I think it was the fiscal year 2021 to 2022, 8,000 humanitarian parole visas had been processed. Only 132 had been approved. Most of them were just straight out denied. You can't put that on foreign governments. That is the United States Customs and Immigration Service and the U.S. State Department. I mean, they're just trying to like, oh, it's not us. Yeah, it is you. Yeah, it is you. You know, you could be doing different things. If, like I said, at one of somebody said there's like 1 to 200 SIV applications being processed a month. We should be processing 10,000 applications a month at least. We used to take at Ellis Island, we took 5,000 immigrants in a day, one single day at Ellis Island. We can do better than what we're doing. It's not a can't, it's a won't. But going back to the title of the stream, it's like the real horror. The real horror is thinking that, not knowing what the real problem is. I mean, you have to know what the problem is to be able to fix it. And if you don't know what the actual problem is, what the actual stick is, then you can't do anything about it. And all this misdirection is basically keeping the problem in place. And it's also discouraging because you think, okay, if you do X, Y, and Z, that you'll get a certain result, and realize that it's just a game. It's just like, oh, it's not the truth. We're just putting up this front so we can look like we're doing something, but this really isn't going to work. So anyway, I don't know. I just read that this morning, and so it kind of has me riled up a little bit. And besides that, it was what was it yesterday? I don't know. I'm losing track of time. So what was yesterday? Oh, yesterday I got. I need to start getting more organized about the resources I have, or that I've found in because one of our contacts that's been helping us with things in Pakistan asked for help for a family that's now in California that they went from the whole Brazil to U.S. thing, and they need help. And so I need to be better about getting my resources together so I can know like where help actually is. And then someone else in our group, a friend of a friend told him that he could get him to Brazil for $8,000, and I was like, that's not okay. First of all, Brazil is like the only country that has semi-open doors. I've heard that it's gotten a little more restrictive recently, but you shouldn't have to pay for a visa to Brazil. You shouldn't have to pay for visas anyway. There's application fees, but and actually, out of all those visas that were denied, the U.S. has collected $19 million in visa application fees from Afghans. But as far as Brazil, I shouldn't be paying that for to get a visa to Brazil, and I know what flights are, and they are not $8,000 from Islamabad to Brazil. And I'm like, no. And then he's like, oh, for another $5,000, he can sponsor him in the U.S. I'm like, that's not how it works. That's not how it works. But it's like all of this there's so many scammers. There's so many scammers, and it's such a desperate situation. And it's like cannibals. I mean, forget demonic interference. I mean, humans can be pretty darn disgusting too. I mean, everybody's looking for a way to exploit situations, and it really made me angry when he was telling me this, because it's like I'm sitting here looking at ways to looking at fundraisers for spirit nights, and I think we're going to be selling popcorn to help raise money for them, so they can eat, and we can get passports for people. And then these jackasses are coming in and oh yeah, here's a way out, hey, get find $13,000 and we'll get you here. It's like, you know what, I've never laid hands on anybody in my life, but I don't know, that might tempt me if they were in front of me, because people that take advantage of situations like that are just infuriating. But then I'm thinking, you know what, most people are like that, the whole thing with they if they can take and get, they do. And there's just no recourse for it. I mean, a lot of times there's not. I mean, I saw some discussion this last week on Twitter about how hell is bad. I'm thinking, you know what, for me personally, knowing that there is a hell and that in the end no one gets away with anything, that is actually a comfort to me, because one way or the other, I mean, justice will come. There will be justice. And so some of these people, I mean, what this guy claiming he can get them to the US is doing is no different than Jerry Jones and all the energy companies that are literally when we had our freeze, and they completely price gouged us for energy. I mean, it's Texas, same difference. Texas is so corrupt, and people who have money get away with it. And I mean, if they could charge us for air, they would. I mean, that's just how just immoral and corrupt and people are. It's like, if we can take from you and get away with it, we will. And so it's the same difference. It's just for the Afghans, they have nobody stand for them. They have their country. There's no justice system. Their people running their country want them dead. Pakistan is just being really horrific, and we just stand and we want to act like we're heroes, and we're not doing what we should be doing right now. Anyway, I'm just kind of tired. If I'm all over the place, that's why. Oh yeah, the other thing that happened yesterday. I just about a month ago, I think I shared that there was this guy that was claiming to be a Christian, was asking for help, and really persistent about it. And I had explained I am just facilitating. People we give help to are people that are referred in by other people in our group, and we have to we have people donating, and there's certain guidelines, and I'm not sending money to people personally. And he had sent me his contact me on Twitter, and he also sent me an email on my website. And when he did that, he sent me his passport and all his documentation. And so I had one of our people check out the information, and turns out he's not a Christian. I mean, very obviously not a Christian, because one of our people is from where this guy says he's from. And so anyway, I had just blocked him, and I wasn't responding anymore, because I was like, I've given you the information that I have that might be able to help you, that I can, and that's just all there is to it. And I had whether he was actually a Christian or not wouldn't have changed my answer. I just wanted to like confirm that. And so then I get an email yesterday where he's basically cussing me out for not responding to him and helping him. And this was right after, just a few hours, I had this conversation with one of our people about the guy that's the scammer that's promising them, we can get them into the U.S. And so I was kind of done with scammers. And I was like, I know that you're not. I had somebody investigate your story, and I know that it's not true. And so I'm going to send your information to the person that's sending out information to evacuation allies and like a whole list of agencies. And, so people will know that they're a scammer, that your story is a lie. And it's just I think part of it is just the misogyny, like some of the things he was saying is the misogyny that's just baked into Islam. But it's like, you think you can do whatever you want. There's no recourse. And do I have time to cause trouble for him or, do what I can to make sure he doesn't continue to scam people? I don't really have time for it. But I'm just at this point, I'm like, you know what? I will take the time. I will make the time. I'm going to send the emails to these agencies, and I can't ensure that they'll do anything with it, but at least I will have sent the information. So, there's for anybody that sends money overseas, the U.S. Treasury has a database that you're supposed to check the person's name in. So anytime we've sent money, like I always look and do a search for the person's name and make sure they're not on the ban list. And so, I think they can do whatever they want, and there's no recourse, but least I can do is get the information out there. So anyway, so that was this week. So it hasn't been all bad, but it may sound like it. I think I'm just tired. I think that's what it is. But it's been, other than that, it's been kind of a quiet week because, but what we have been doing is been getting some of the things going for some of the people in our groups. Afghanistan did open their passport office recently, and so we do have a contact that's supposed to be helping with that. But it's like this whole thing, like each province only has a certain number of passports that they'll issue in a month, and our contact wasn't quite sure, like, how long it was going to take, or, I think that, I can't remember if the actual passport fees are $55 or $65 in the stated price, in Afghanistan. He's like, I'm not sure. He wasn't sure how much it was actually going to take yet. So passports from Afghanistan are supposedly maybe a possibility, but they've been shut down for months. And so, we're really not quite sure when those are going to, like, actually getting them in hand. We're not quite sure when that's going to be. But there is another option for embassy passports. The thing is, they're not, so the passports from Afghanistan are biometric. Passports from the embassy are not. But you can do a border crossing into and out of Afghanistan with a non-biometric passport, but you can't fly out of the airport. You can't fly out of Afghanistan with them, but people have immigrated with them. I also found out for some from our person that has done the interviews with, or done interpreting for the interviews for some visa applications, like with Spain and UNHCR, that Spain will give, like, people that are coming in on a humanitarian visa one-time travel documents. So they don't actually have to have passports, which is awesome. But not all countries are like that. So our plan is just to get passports as we can for people. But this is the thing, there actually are embassy passports, but then there's also a lot of scammers out there. So we are starting with one passport just to check to make sure that our contact that we have is actually giving a valid passport. So anyway, that's where we're starting. And getting some documentations together. And the other thing that we are going to be doing is, I mentioned that that person that's been doing the interbreeding, he also helped prep documents for people, like make sure they had all their documentation together so they can present a strong case for asylum when they go into either UNHCR or any of the countries, the embassies for the different countries where they want to immigrate. And so what we're having him do is start with families that are going in for interviews. So we have the wife of one of the head of the house church, and then somebody, the Free Fight girl, the one that we were getting a visa for. She's actually in Pakistan now, so she needs to make an application with. Hey, Joy. She needs to make an application with UNHCR. So he said that if he can work with them in the beginning, that they can make a strong case, right? But if they've already submitted their case to UNHCR, had interviews, there's only so much he can do. But I've told him that we would like him to work with our families as they go. And so he actually has, he does translation services, and he has English classes that he teaches. So it's not like he has a huge amount of time in his schedule. So he's going to be working on 1 to 2 families a week and helping them get ready. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be working on, because I was just realized this week, because I'm like, impatient, because I want to get them, into these interviews and go. But if they get to these interviews and they're not prepared, then they're blowing that opportunity. So I guess this pause was good. Ismail was actually, so our guy was actually he was in Afghanistan, just recently got back. So he wasn't there to assist in this. So that we have this now, and maybe it's a good thing that we have this pause, that we can make sure that we are making the most out of these interviews and applications from the beginning, so we don't blow our opportunities. But so that's what we're working on. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. I don't know. I just scammers. It's just there's another Afghan advocate that has been kind of giving me. He's been involved since before the withdrawal, like helping SIV applicants kind of along in the process, just supporting them and kind of helping where he can. And he has some connections in different areas, very interesting connections in different areas. But he'll send me messages like these accounts on Twitter, like these are actually Taliban, infiltrators. You have to be cautious about this. And he's the one that connected me in with the person that's doing the Afghan online school and all of that. But it's just, we were talking about this. This is part of what's exhausting. It's like, the situation is overwhelming, and as it is. But what makes it even more exhausting is just trying to sort through what is true and what isn't true. And so not only are there all these scammers, that you have, like, is this a real story? How do you verify this? That's challenging and can be exhausting. But even just to be honest with you, like, sometimes our people, and I understand why they're cautious, because they've been through a lot of betrayal. They do have to be cautious. I'm this American who doesn't really have experience in this, and I'm just trying to learn as I go. And so I'm just trying to be as careful as I can. But it's like, I just need to know the story. Like, what is the actual story? Like, what are we actually dealing with? Like, just be straight with me about, it's not like, if this letter is fake, then I just need to know this, because we need to be operating with reality, with the truth, not fake information. And so sometimes, even with that, it's kind of exhausting. I had a discussion with one of our people this past week. I've heard a little bit of his story, and he has there's some news articles about his story over, actually there's several of them starting in 2021. And I was reading those. I'm like, okay, so I'm not sure if some of the things that are in the stories are it has to do with the writing, because the writing itself of the articles, at least one of them, wasn't that good, and I knew that some of the information in the article was not right. It was not it was not a fact. So I don't know if it had to do with the writing, or if it was uh, that his story had changed. So I told him, you need to go through and look at those articles that that have been written, and then you need to make sure that between those articles and what you're saying, that all the facts line up, because if they don't, that's going to be a red flag. And there were questions that I had, and I went down a list of things like, this doesn't make sense to me, you told me this, you told me this. And so if there are discrepancies between the two, you need to be able to explain that. And he's like, well, so I'm like, okay, I'm fine, I'm just telling you, this is what we need to be working on. So anyway, I guess we're in prep mode. But I do feel like there's going to be some movement. I don't know. I just feel like there is. All the investigations and reports and stories, and I really feel like we're going to start getting some movement on things. I don't know. That's what I'm praying for. But anyway, I don't know. This has been kind of all over the place. But just as a reminder, I'm just going to go here. What we are working on is, I haven't talked about this. So they haven't actually, oh, that's not right. That's IDS. Where is it? Okay. So they have not posted recently, but they were publishing a new podcast every week. They've kind of slowed down recently, but the Afghanistan Project podcast, if you want to kind of get an inside story about what's going on and the different efforts that are going on, that's a good way to get an overview of, the severity of it, and just kind of the grassroots on the ground types of things that are going on. And then if you want to help individuals in Afghanistan, you can go to the SEAL app. You can download, you can buy things. They have some really cool jewelry. You can also send food to and different other types of care packages to a SEAL through to people in Afghanistan through a SEAL. So I haven't mentioned that one in a couple of weeks, but that's a good option. But I'll just say that they need a lot of help. It's a serious situation, and they do need a lot of help. It's just that, the need is real. Not all stories are, and you can verify information. And I think that it's important not to encourage people who are scamming and rewarding that behavior. So it's hard to make a call on it because, the need is so widespread and it's difficult, but I don't think it's helpful to help people that are exploiting the situation. So anyway, but a final thing is this is what we are working on for our people. We're going to be working on putting together sponsor groups for them, and when Welcome Corps is actually in place right now, and so individual groups of 5 individuals or organizations can sponsor refugee families, and they will help them once they get here. They will help them for 90 days, just kind of get acclimated. They go pick them up at the airport. They help them get settled, show them where to go. There has to be one team lead for each welcome group. And then it's basically a 90-day commitment, helping them get acclimated. It's not 90 days on your own helping them get acclimated. There's also going to be a local refugee resettlement agency here in Houston. I know the Interfaith Ministries is one of them. Also, Houston Welcomes Refugees is probably another. I don't know who all they use, but there's several here in Houston. But you have a local agency that does help with that. So it's not like you have to try to figure things out on your own. And on that website, if you go to it, welcomecorps.org, it lines out the sponsor side of it very, very specifically. They give a lot of details. It's really well laid out. So the sponsor group is raises $2,375 per person in the family, and that goes to them to help them or towards what they need, like deposits for an apartment, or they will get funds and support in the refugee system, but it takes a little bit to get that going. So this is just kind of like the initial, when they get here, they get a little bit of help before they're into that user app program, so that they are in that program for a year, and then after that they get they can get a green card, and then after 5 years they can get they can apply for citizenship. So this plan, I think, is actually better than the other two options that are out there right now. So like the SIV applications and the humanitarian parole applications, that just gives them a visa to get here. And then once they do get here, they have to apply for asylum. And our asylum system is super backed up. This is immigration court asylum applications. Huge backlog. The backlog right now is like 10 years. So this is what I've been trying to explain to our people, it's so bad in Pakistan. It's really hard for, and this is 2021 when the U.S. pulled out, and we're in 2023 now. So I know it's hard to say, be patient, we're working this, but in the second phase of Welcome Corps, which hopefully is going to be open in a few months, individuals, we can nominate them into the program, and hopefully that will move it a little faster. But for the SIV, the people who got evacuated in August 2021, what they're facing right now is those visas that they got to get here are expiring in August. And so most of them haven't had their asylum approved yet because we have this huge backlog. And so in Congress right now, there's a bill that's been sitting there called the Afghan Adjustment Act, and that is supposed to fix this. So because the reality is that all those people that were evacuated, all that drama, and with the evacuations in 2021 that everybody was so interested in, for our short attention span, they're going to be facing deportation if that's not passed. I mean, they'll be at risk for it. I mean, I hope we wouldn't actually do that. I mean, the fact that we've been denying all these other applications, I don't know why I have that hope, but I hope we would actually do that. But they're in a mess right now too, and hopefully I'm really hoping Welcome Corps will be a cleaner path for them. So anyway, I've been telling them this, but we need sponsor groups together for them, and so if you want to help put together a sponsor group or something, then just send me a message at contact@raisetoWalk.org. Oh, this is the other thing. This is what we're doing this week. So I think I mentioned last week, they know what Easter is, and they know, but they haven't had any experience really with corporate worship. And so, because even when they were in Afghanistan before the Taliban took over, it was still, dangerous to be a Christian. And they haven't had that public experience, right, of observing Easter. So we've been focusing on Easter for the past few weeks in the lessons in the Bible studies. And then on Wednesday, my church is starting on Wednesday a display. It's Stations of the Cross in the worship center. And I've talk to them to get it okay, just because usually it's kind of quiet in there, and I didn't want to like be doing this and it, be disruptive. But I'm going to have a Zoom call with them. We're going to go through, kind of do a virtual tour of the Stations of the Cross on Wednesday, and I'm going to go then because the kids there's going to be schools there, so it's probably going to be noisier anyway. So we're going to do that, and then we are doing right now I did this devotional called an Unexpected Devotional. This is back in 2019, and the backstory of this is this is back when I was like, we were just getting started with an Unexpected Journal, and I was reading about publishing on Amazon, and everybody was saying that like, oh yeah, Kindle Unlimited is really awesome for new authors to get a bigger audience and more exposure. But the reality is, it turns out that it is for some genres, not the genre that we write in, but we could not, I didn't know that at the time, and we can't put any of the journals into Kindle Unlimited because it's available for free. So the requirement with Kindle Unlimited is that the content has to be exclusive to Amazon, and obviously it's not. So I wrote this devotional. It's 10-day devotional, a reflection for Holy Week, which starts with the Saturday. Yesterday was Lazarus Sunday, and I connected it with, for each devotional, there's a link to an article on an Unexpected Journal that I tie in for the reflection for that day. So we are doing that kind of as like a discussion group, book chat sort of thing. I'm hoping the way I'm understanding WhatsApp works, I'm hoping that this is right. So the issue with doing a book chat is that I know there's Discord, but I didn't want to have another app to monitor. So the issue is security, right? And so I have the groups that of Christians, but there's several different groups. So I also wanted, like, if other people wanted to participate, I wanted them to be able to do that. So I sent that to my newsletter. So I created a community and added the groups to it. And my understanding is that the community is that nobody can see. They can see the groups that I've added to it, but they can't see the members or their contact information. And so I added those groups. I also created a separate group for the devotional, and I told them that if they join the devotional group, that other people will be able to see their name and contact information, or at least their phone number. I guess they don't know their name, but at least their phone number. But if they just want to follow along, I'll be sending the notice to the group so they'll see what it is, but they obviously can't. I mean, I guess they could have a discussion in the original group, but that the other one is there if they wanted to do that. So anyway, so we're doing that right now too. So we started that yesterday. But anyway, obviously I don't think I'm going to do this next week since it's going to be Easter. So I hope everybody has a great Easter, and oh, okay, send me a message on contact. This is a thing. I mean, I do have a channel on TikTok, but I haven't done it just because it's just one more thing to manage, and having to convert them to vertical. Also, I have to check. I do know that TikTok has started allowing longer videos and live streams, but I don't think, since I don't have a lot of followers on TikTok, I don't think I have access to that yet. So if TikTok opens up the API so that I can stream there, I can do that, because I'm just doing this on StreamYard, and so I could do that, but I'll have to look. You're probably right, but I also have to look and see if I can do that, because I only have so much bandwidth that I can manage. But anyway, if you have any tips on that, you can send me a message to contact Race to Walk, and I'll look into it. But anyway, I hope you guys have a great Easter. Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing easy. This is the thing. Like right now, I'm streaming to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitch on just on the stream. So if they open it up, I can stream there. And I guess I could take part of my videos and put it on TikTok. Some objections. So are you talking about this specifically for? Okay, just send me a message like what you think I should answer, and maybe I'll do some specifically for TikTok because StreamYard actually has added something with some vertical videos, but I haven't even had time to do that. But yeah, send me a message. Maybe I'll do some things specifically for TikTok and see. Let me know. So, but that's a good idea. One more thing to do. But thanks for joining in. But I will. Hope you guys have a great Easter. And if you haven't already made plans for service, I hope you do that. But I guess I will see you guys later.